What's up YouTube, it's Shanti Hall, and today's video is a little different from my normal game breakdown. Since I've been more active in promoting my channel, I've gotten a few requests from you guys for certain videos, one of which being a mock draft, which I'm here to give you guys today. Now I'm not gonna lie, I'm not the most avid college basketball watcher out there, but I do follow the top prospects fairly closely. So I think I have a good grasp of their strengths and weaknesses. Plus, I watch enough of the NBA to know what some of these lottery teams need to help their rebuild. I'm only gonna go as far as 10, and I'm gonna explain why I think this is the best pick for each team. I'm gonna start with 1 and move up to 10, but remember these teams could change around in the future because we are in the Great Tank War of 2018. But we're gonna start this with the Memphis Grizzlies, who are sitting on a league worst record of 18-49 currently. And the player I believe the Memphis Grizzlies should select if they were to get the first overall pick is DeAndre Ayton. Now, for those of you who don't know, DeAndre Ayton is by far the best player in college basketball currently. He's a 7'1", 250-pound big man that goes to Arizona. For the season, Ayton is averaging 20.3 points, 11.5 rebounds, 1.6 assists, 1.9 blocks. He's shooting 61% from the field and 36% from behind the three-point line. But it's not just about the numbers that he's putting up, it's about the way he's putting up those numbers. He has the most NBA ready game of any big man we've seen coming out of the draft in quite a while. He's shown great athleticism, great footwork, and a silky smooth jump shot to go with all of that. And shooting 36% from behind the three-point line can lead you to believe that he'll become a respectable three-point shooter in the NBA. In my opinion, I'd say he 100% has the highest ceiling in this draft. I only have two kind of negative things to say against him right now. He's not an abysmal defender by any means, but that end of the floor is something he could definitely improve on. With that being said though, he does have the length and athleticism to become an elite rim protector one day. And the second negative is something that I wouldn't personally hold against him, and I'll explain why in a second, but others do, and that's that it's a guard-driven NBA right now. This is a non-issue for me because I believe the league is trending towards versatile big men like Embiid and Porzingis and Karl-Anthony Towns, as opposed to guard play anyway. I think some people get so caught up in how good some of the guards in the NBA are now that they forget that some of the best young players in the league, if not the best young players in the league, are mostly big men. But moving on to the reason why I think the Memphis Grizzlies should select DeAndre Ayton. For starters, the Grizzlies aren't doing a long rebuild. I'm pretty sure they're just tanking for 1 year. They have a lot of money tied up in vets who are still pretty good, Mike Conley and Marc Gasol being the two, so I'm sure they want to be competitive next year. And I believe DeAndre Ayton gives them the best chance to be competitive again as soon as possible. I think he could fit well next to Marc Gasol, helping to space the floor because teams have to respect both of their jump shot. I also think that he could fill a big hole that was left by Zach Randolph when the Grizzlies decided to move on from him. Not to mention Marc Gasol being a former defensive player of the year could help DeAndre Ayton in that aspect of the game. And soon, once the Grizzlies decide to move on from Marc Gasol, they have a player with superstar potential. So that's number 1, Memphis Grizzlies, DeAndre Ayton. Now moving on to number 2, which would be the Phoenix Suns. The Suns currently have the second worst record in the NBA at 19-50. And if they were to get the number 2 pick, the player I think they should select is Luka Doncic. Luka Doncic is currently 18, and he's definitely one of the best players in Europe. He definitely breaks the mold of traditional European prospects coming over to America after being drafted and being long-term projects. This dude's game is probably as polished as any 18-year-old you're ever gonna find. He's a 6'8" shooting guard who currently plays for Real Madrid. He's currently averaging 15.4 points, 5.3 rebounds, 4.5 assists, 1 steal, shooting 46% from the field, and 31% from the three-point line. In my opinion, Luka Doncic is definitely one of the safest picks you can possibly make. I think he'd be a great playmaker and fairly good primary ball handler for most teams, as he has above average handles, he has great court vision, and he plays very, very well in the pick and roll. I really only have maybe 2 concerns about him, the first of which being his lack of athleticism. I don't think he has great athleticism compared to other players in the NBA, and that concerns me on the defensive end of the floor because I'm not sure who he can guard at the 2 or 3 position. He still is a pretty smart defender though, and over time he can build his body and probably become a decent one someday. Second concern I would have for him is that he is shooting 31% from behind the three-point line, and without, again, that great athleticism, shooting is very important for a player like him. With that being said though, by every account, he's an extremely hard worker and he looks very confident taking that shot, so I have no doubt that that will improve in the future. But on to why I think the Phoenix Suns should select him. they are in desperate need of a primary ball handler and playmaker. They need someone who's able to help create for other players and be able to score for themselves, and Luka Doncic fits that description perfectly. Also, I believe the Suns still may have a few more years of rebuilding to do, and at this point in the rebuilding stage, you just want to acquire as much talent as possible, and Luka Doncic is the best player available. Alright, so that's my number 2 pick, Luka Doncic, Phoenix Suns. Now moving on to number 3, which will belong to the Atlanta Hawks currently, of a 20-49 record. And the player I believe that the Atlanta Hawks should select if they are to pick here is Jaren Jackson Jr. Jaren Jackson Jr. is a 6'10" power forward / center out of Michigan State. On the season, he's averaging 11.3 points, 5.8 rebounds, 1.2 assists, 3.2 blocks, shooting 52% from the field and 39% from behind the three-point line. As far as strengths go, I'd say that he has the highest defensive potential out of anybody in this draft class. I think he has the speed and defensive instincts to guard 3 positions in the NBA. And not only that, but he's shown the potential that he could become a great rim protector one day in the NBA. Guys like that are going to become increasingly more important as the league continues to transition towards positionless basketball. He's also pretty solid offensively. He can put the ball on the floor and drive to the rim, and he can step out and hit 3-pointers. And on top of that, he's also the youngest player projected to go in the lottery at 18.5 years old. In my opinion, he sounds like a perfect big man for any modern NBA offense. My only concern right now is that he's 225 pounds, and I wonder how effective he can be against other NBA players in the post. Personally, I think he's a great fit for the Hawks next to John Collins, who is already averaging 1.1 blocks a game. Jaren Jackson Jr. could anchor that defense and also help space the floor, while giving him a chance to have one of the better front courts in the NBA in the future. Also, this is just my opinion, but there's no coach in the NBA I trust with 2 talented big men more than Mike Budenholzer, as he did just have a long-term run of success with Al Horford and Paul Millsap. So that's my 3rd pick, Jaren Jackson Jr. to the Atlanta Hawks. Now moving on to the 4th pick, which will most likely go to the Orlando Magic, who are sitting on the 4th worst record in the NBA right now at 21-48. And the player I believe they should select if they were to get this pick is Michael Porter Jr. He's a 6'10" forward who is currently playing at Missouri. Now, I'm not going to read off his numbers from college because so far he's only played in 2 games and less than a half of that was healthy. So for the most part, this pick is based off the potential we saw from him before his injury. And what we saw was someone who could someday become an elite scorer on an NBA level. He has good shot mechanics and seemed to be able to knock down shots from mid-range with pretty good consistency. Before his injury, he seemed to have well above average athleticism, even by an NBA standard. He's not the greatest on-ball defender, but he's serviceable and he seemed pretty decent helping out weak side. As far as weaknesses go, his handle isn't bad by any means. It's definitely decent. But if he wants to become a truly elite scorer in the NBA, he's going to need to improve on that to be able to create more opportunities for himself. My second problem with him would be that there are some pretty serious injury concerns. I guess we'll see throughout the tournament if they can win a few games, how well he's recovered. But back problems are usually pretty serious and they usually don't go away. The reason why the Magic should select him is because they're in desperate need of a player with superstar potential. Jonathan Isaac has been injured for the majority of this season, so I'm not really sure what he's going to be yet. I mean, he has a lot of potential obviously because he's young, but the jury's still out on him. Plus, Aaron Gordon has shown that he's ready to take the next step, so you want to pair him with more talent as soon as possible. Also, the Magic are still in the phase of their rebuild where they just need to keep acquiring talent, so Michael Porter Jr. is the best player available. So that's number 4, Michael Porter Jr. to the Orlando Magic. Now moving on to number 5, which would belong to the Cleveland Cavaliers, who have the Brooklyn Nets pick. And the player I believe the Cleveland Cavaliers should select if they are to pick here is Mo Bamba. Mo Bamba is a 7-foot, 225-pound center who is currently playing for Texas. For the season, he's averaging 12.9 points, 10.4 rebounds, 3.7 blocks, shooting 54% from the field, and 28% from behind the three-point line. As far as strengths go, he's a future defensive anchor for any NBA team that drafts him. I have no doubt in my mind that he'll at the least become a very, very elite rim protector. He also has very, very long arms and great athleticism, so he could also be great in the pick and roll at catching lobs. Also, he shoots 28% from behind the three-point line, but he's comfortable taking that shot, which leads me to believe one day he'll be able to consistently knock down at least mid-ranges. He's a pretty raw prospect offensively, but he could develop into something pretty special, or at the least play the same kind of role Clint Capella does. As far as negatives or concerns go, he's still fairly raw offensively. I think he's going to need some good coaching and development to really grow in that aspect of the game, which is not something I'm sure the Cavaliers have. Then again, I'm also not sure they'll have the same coach next year. Also, a second concern of mine would be that he weighs somewhere from 215 to 225 pounds. I've read different things, but that's not big enough to guard other NBA centers, so he needs to put on a bit of weight. The reason I think the Cavs should pick him is because he fills a huge need at one of their weakest positions. The Cavs are one of the worst defensive teams in the NBA, and part of that is due to lack of rim protection. Although Mo is still very raw at the offensive end of the floor, I think he could come into the NBA and make immediate defensive impact. Also, if LeBron is still there, I think he could be a very good roll man in pick and roll situations. I don't think he's as athletic as Clint Capella, but like I said earlier, he can play a similar role because he has such long arms. He can just go up and get it off of pick and roll alley-oop situations. So that's number 5, Mo Bamba to the Cleveland Cavaliers. Now I know I said I'm going up to 10, but this video is pretty long, so I'm going to stop at 5 and then make a part 2 later, so look out for that. But for now, those are my top 5 picks in the NBA draft. Now again, I'm not a college expert. I had to watch a lot of games and do a lot of research for this video, and these are just my opinions, so let me know what you think down in the comments. Give me your top 5, and I'll see you guys next time.